Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he has agreed to most of the 20-point plan crafted by the United States to end the war with Russia, the war that Russia began by invading Ukraine. But Zelenskyy says he could not agree on some of Russia's territorial demands in the Donbas region of Ukraine, or about the future of a power plant that has been under Russian control since 2022. Moscow is, quote, formulating its position, unquote, on the peace deal, and is expected to respond sometime later today. CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio joins me now from our London bureau. Ramy, what points did Zelenskyy agree to?
Yeah, Major. Well, he says he's agreed to most of the U.S. plan, but I got to say Washington hasn't publicly signaled if it agrees with this updated framework, so we might call it some kind of counterproposal for now. And Zelenskyy's biggest compromise with the U.S. plan is his apparent readiness to pull back Ukraine's military from areas in the east, that is the Donbas, that are still under Kyiv's control. But the caveat here, not hand them to Russia, which has been Moscow's maximalist demand, and then instead turn them into some kind of zone, a demilitarized zone or a free economic zone as some kind of buffer. He also said that if Ukraine pulled back by a certain distance, that Russia would have to match them with the exact same distance, and that Ukraine would be the police, would be the authorities on the ground. This new draft also calls for strong security guarantees, Major, for Ukraine, along the lines of NATO's Article 5 about collective self-defense, along with a military strength of 800,000 troops. And that is 200,000 more than what Russia wanted in the original plan, now from something like over a month ago. Zelenskyy says a referendum would need to be held for this whole proposal, and that is where it stands right now.
And Ramy, while these talks go on, the war continues, not only in Ukraine, but parts of Russia. 2 police officers were killed in an explosion close to where a senior Russian general was killed in a car bombing on Monday. What's up with that?
Absolutely, yes. 2 policemen in their 20s, along with a third person, in fact, a civilian, were killed. Those 2 policemen, we understand, were traffic officers, according to Russian investigators. And they said they saw what they described as a suspicious individual near a police car. They then approached him, and that is when this explosive device went off, killing them and that third person. The Reuters news agency spoke with one resident who said it sounded like the car a few days ago, and that's a reference or a nod to the death of that lieutenant general that we were reporting on from a suspected car bombing there. He was the 3rd lieutenant general to be killed under similar circumstances in the past year. Ukraine, as usual, hasn't claimed responsibility, but there are not many tears in Kyiv for another loss in terms of military hierarchy in Russia.
Coming to us from our London bureau, Ramy Inocencio, thanks so very much.